I am Liz Harper, 42 years old, and I caught my husband playing footsie with a married woman in a crowded restaurant. Before I tell you about the absolute devastation that followed and how I ended up with a lake house and a new life, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. The air inside the Capitol Grill smelled of expensive steak and even more expensive cologne. It was the kind of place where deals were made, hands were shaken, and apparently, marriages were destroyed. My heels clicked against the polished floor, a sound that usually made me feel confident, but today, it sounded like a countdown. Beside me walked a man I had only met a few days ago, Jasper Vance. He was tall, his shoulders were tense, and his face was pale, like someone marching to his own execution. I touched his elbow gently, not to comfort him, but to steady myself. "Are you ready?" I whispered, though I knew the answer. No one is ever ready for this. We navigated through the tables, past businessmen laughing over martinis and couples celebrating anniversaries. And then, I saw them. Booth 14. The corner booth. My husband, Denver, was leaning forward, his face glowing with a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. He was handsome, I'll give him that. Even now, with rage boiling in my gut, I could see why women fell for him. He was holding her hand across the white tablecloth. Her hand. Marlo Vance. She was younger than me, blonde, with that effortless, shiny look that screams high maintenance. She was giggling at something he said, throwing her head back, exposing her long neck. They looked like a postcard of happiness. They looked like they didn't have a care in the world. They looked like they weren't spending money they didn't have, ruining lives they had promised to protect. I stopped right at the edge of their table. My shadow fell across their plates. Denver looked up, annoyed at the interruption. His eyes met mine, and for a second, he looked confused, like his brain couldn't process why his wife was standing in the middle of his romantic lunch. Then, recognition hit. The color drained from his face so fast it was like someone pulled a plug. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He tried to pull his hand away from hers, but her fingers were still intertwined with his. Marlo stopped laughing. She looked at Denver, then at me, her blue eyes wide with a mix of shock and irritation. "Denver," she asked, her voice high and sweet. "Is this a friend of yours?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes locked on my husband. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack them, but my voice came out steady, icy. "Hello, darling," I said. "I hope the steak is tender." Denver scrambled to stand up, knocking his napkin off his lap. "Liz. What are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood," I said, a smile stretching across my face that felt more like a baring of teeth. "And I ran into someone. I believe you know my plus one." I stepped aside. Jasper Vance stepped into the light. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, looking down at his wife. Marlo's hand flew to her mouth. She made a sound like a strangled cat. The silence at the table was heavy, suffocating. Even the chatter from the nearby tables seemed to die down. Denver looked from me to Jasper, then back to me. His eyes were darting around, looking for an exit, looking for a lie, looking for anything but the truth. But there was no exit. The glass of red wine in Denver's hand slipped. It shattered on the table, splashing dark red liquid all over Marlo's cream dress. She screamed, jumping up. But nobody moved to help her. We just watched the stain spread, like blood on snow. This was it. The moment I had been planning. The moment my life shattered completely, and yet, the moment I finally started to pick up the pieces. But to understand why I didn't scream, why I didn't cry, and why I brought her husband along, you have to understand what happened 4 weeks ago. You have to understand the lie I had been living. For weeks earlier, I thought I was the luckiest woman in Atlanta. I had been married to Denver for 15 years. We met in college. He was charming, ambitious, always the life of the party. I was quiet, studious, the one who made sure the bills were paid and the lights stayed on. It worked. Or so I thought. We lived in a beautiful house in a historic neighborhood. It was my grandmother's house, left to me in her will. I had spent years restoring it, sanding the floors myself, painting the walls, choosing every piece of furniture. It was my sanctuary. Denver was a real estate agent. He was always chasing the big deal, always talking about the next $1 million listing. "Babe, this is the one," he'd say, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. "Once this commission comes in, we're going to Europe. Italy. Just you and me." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. I supported him. When the market was slow, I covered the expenses with my income from my interior design business. I kept the house running. I made sure he looked the part of the successful agent. I ironed his shirts. I listened to his pitches. I was his biggest cheerleader. But looking back, the signs were there. I just chose not to see them. It started with the clothes. Denver had always dressed well, but suddenly, he was obsessed. He bought 3 Italian suits in 1 month. "You have to spend money to make money, Liz," he told me when I asked about the credit card bill. "Clients want to see success." Then came the late nights. Networking dinners, he called them. Or last-minute showings. He would come home smelling of expensive wine and cigars, too tired to talk, too tired to touch me. I told myself he was working hard for us. I told myself marriage goes through phases. One evening, about a month before the restaurant incident, Denver came home with a gift. A small, black box with a silver ribbon. My heart fluttered. He hadn't brought me a gift just because in years. "For you," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips felt cold. I opened the box. Inside was a bottle of perfume. Chanel No. 5. I stared at it. "Thank you, honey," I said, forcing a smile. "Do you like it?" he asked, already checking his phone. "It's lovely. I hate Chanel No. 5. It gives me a headache. I have worn Jo Malone for 10 years. Denver knows this. He bought me my first bottle. Why would he buy me something I never wear?" "The saleslady said it's very popular," he muttered, typing a text message. "Right," I said. "It's very thoughtful." I put the bottle on my dresser, next to my Jo Malone. It sat there like an intruder. A small, glass stranger watching us sleep. A few days later, I was doing laundry. I checked Denver's pockets like I always do. He has a habit of leaving pens in his shirts. In the inside pocket of his new navy blazer, I felt a piece of paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. Lou Bilbakit. Tuesday night. 8:30 p.m. 2 steak frites. 1 bottle of Cabernet. 1 chocolate mousse. Total, $340. My stomach dropped. Tuesday night? Tuesday night he told me he was showing a condo in Buckhead to a group of investors from China. He said they went to a sports bar for beers afterwards. Since when do investors share a chocolate mousse? I stood there in the laundry room, the hum of the dryer filling the silence. I stared at the receipt until the numbers blurred. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he treated a client. Maybe the client was a woman. That wasn't a crime, right? Business is business. I folded the receipt and put it back in his pocket. I didn't want to be the nagging wife. I didn't want to be the jealous, suspicious woman who checks receipts. I trusted him. Or maybe, deep down, I was just terrified of what I would find if I started digging. That night at dinner, I watched him eat. He was telling me about a property on West Paces Ferry. He was animated, using his hands, smiling. But his eyes never really met mine. He was looking through me, or past me. "So, the investors loved the condo?" I asked, cutting a piece of chicken. He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. "What?" Oh. Yeah. Loved it. They're making an offer next week. And the sports bar? Was it fun? Yeah, great wings, he said quickly. Loud, though. Gave me a headache. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had shared a bed with for 15 years. And for the first time I saw a stranger. A stranger wearing a suit I paid for, eating food I cooked, lying to my face without even blinking. That's nice, I said. I'm glad you had fun. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, listening to his breathing, wondering who he really was. The doubt was like a splinter in my mind, small at first, but festering. And once you start doubting, you can't stop. You start seeing everything differently. Every text message tone makes you jump. Every late arrival makes your stomach turn. I knew I had to know the truth. I just didn't know that the truth would be worse than anything I could have imagined. I didn't know that the receipt was just the tip of the iceberg. The real betrayal wasn't about sex. It was about survival. I am not a spy. I am an interior designer. I know about color palettes, fabric textures, and how to make a small room look bigger. I don't know about surveillance. But desperation is a powerful teacher. After the receipt incident, I couldn't just let it go. The splinter in my mind was throbbing. I needed proof. I needed to know if I was crazy or if my life was actually falling apart. 2 days later, on a Thursday morning, Denver left for work early. He was whistling. Who whistles at 7 a.m. on a Thursday? He was wearing his best gray suit and the blue tie I bought him for our anniversary. Big day, he said, grabbing his coffee. Back-to-back showings. Might be late. Okay, I said. Good luck. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I went to his home office. Denver is messy with papers but careful with his phone. He never leaves it unlocked. But he has an old iPad that he uses for reading news. He usually leaves it on his desk. I picked it up. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I pressed the home button. It asked for a passcode. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried the last 4 digits of his social. Incorrect. My hands were shaking. I took a deep breath. Think, Liz. What would he use? What does he care about? I tried 0000. Incorrect. I tried 1234. The screen unlocked. I almost laughed. Of course. Denver was too lazy to remember a complex code. He probably changed it recently because he kept forgetting the old one. I went straight to the Find My app. We had set up family sharing years ago so we could find each other's devices if we lost them. He must have forgotten to disable it on this old iPad. A map of Atlanta popped up. A blue dot pulsed at our house, that was me. A green dot labeled Denver's iPhone was moving north on the highway. I sat in his swivel chair and watched the green dot. It moved past the exit for his office. It kept going. It went past the exit for the supposed showings in Buckhead. It finally stopped in Midtown. It stopped at a luxury apartment complex called the Sovereign. I Googled it. It was one of those ultramodern high-rises with valet parking and a rooftop pool. Definitely not a place where Denver had a listing. He dealt with single-family homes, not high-rise condos. Why was he there? I watched the dot sit there for an hour. Then 2 hours. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my purse and keys. I had to see. I had to know. I drove to Midtown. Traffic was light, but every red light felt like an eternity. When I pulled up near the Sovereign, I parked across the street in a CVS parking lot. I had a clear view of the entrance. I waited. My palms were sweating against the steering wheel. I felt ridiculous. I felt like a stalker. Go home, Liz, I told myself. You're being paranoid. He's probably just meeting a client who lives here. But I didn't go home. At 12:15 p.m., a silver BMW pulled out of the garage. It was Denver's car. I squinted. The windows were tinted, but the sun was hitting the windshield just right. Denver was driving. And in the passenger seat was a woman. She was blonde. She was laughing. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. Then she put her hand on the back of his neck, her fingers playing with his hair. It wasn't a client kiss. It wasn't a friend kiss. It was an ownership kiss. My breath hitched. It was real. It was actually happening. Seeing it was so much worse than imagining it. It felt like a physical punch to the gut. I felt nauseous. I started the car and followed them. I kept 2 cars between us, just like in the movies. They didn't go far. They pulled into a small park a few blocks away. I parked further down the street and walked closer, hiding behind a large oak tree. They were sitting in the car with the windows down. The spring air carried their voices. I can't wait until we don't have to sneak around, the woman said. Her voice was breathy, a little whiny. Soon, baby. Soon, Denver said. His voice was deep, reassuring. The voice he used to use on me when I was upset. You keep saying that, she pouted. But when? I'm tired of waiting, Denver. Jasper is getting suspicious. He keeps asking why I'm always shopping on Thursdays. Jasper. She had a husband. I know, Denver said, stroking her arm. Just hold on a little longer. The paperwork is almost done. The bank just needs one more signature. Once the loan comes through on the house, I'll have the cash. We can go anywhere. Cabo? Paris? My blood ran cold. The loan on the house? Are you sure she won't notice? The woman asked. Denver laughed. A cruel, dismissive sound. Liz? Please. She trusts me completely. She signs whatever I put in front of her. She thinks I'm refinancing for a lower rate. She has no idea I'm pulling out all the equity. I'm going to take the money, file for divorce, and leave her the debt. The house is in her name, but the debt will be marital. By the time she figures it out, we'll be sipping margaritas on a beach. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stop the scream. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was stealing from me. He was planning to bankrupt me. He was going to take my grandmother's house, the only thing I had left of my family, and turn it into a vacation fund for him and his mistress. Wrong doi them chetnua, he said, a phrase he probably picked up from one of his multicultural podcasts, trying to sound sophisticated. Convio gia qua on sap kyga bon naroi. My old wife is about to sign the papers to sell the house. Old wife. I am 42. He is 45. Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry. I wasn't sad anymore. Sadness is for people who have hope. I had no hope for this marriage. It was dead. It had been murdered right there in the front seat of a silver BMW. I turned around and walked back to my car. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Confronting them now would be foolish. He would deny it. He would hide the money. He would gaslight me. No. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be cold. I sat in my car, wiping my face with a tissue. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but my jaw was set. Okay, Denver, I whispered to the empty car. You want a war? You got one. I drove home on autopilot. My mind was racing, cataloging every document I had signed in the last 6 months. Denver often brought papers home, tax forms, insurance updates, refinancing options. Just sign here, babe, it's standard stuff, he'd say, and I, the trusting fool, would sign. When I got home, I went straight to the safe in our bedroom closet. I spun the dial. Inside were our passports, birth certificates, and a file labeled house. I opened the file. It was empty. My heart stopped. The deed to the house, the mortgage papers, gone. I ran to his home office again. I tore through his desk drawers. Nothing. I checked the filing cabinet. Locked. I grabbed a letter opener and jammed it into the lock, twisting until it popped. I didn't care about being subtle anymore. Inside, buried under a stack of old property listings, was a folder from Apex Lending. A predatory lender. I recognized the name from news stories about high-interest loans. I opened it. And there it was. A loan application for $400,000. Secured against the equity of my home. The document was dated 3 weeks ago. And at the bottom, there was my signature. Except I hadn't signed it. It looked like my signature. The loops were right, the slant was right. But the ink was slightly different, a heavy ballpoint pen I never use. He had forged it. He had practiced my signature and forged it to steal nearly $500,000. The loan was approved. The funds were scheduled for disbursement in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That was my timeline. If I didn't stop this, in 14 days, Denver would have the money, and I would have a lien on my house that I could never repay. I would lose everything. I took photos of every page. Then I put everything back exactly how I found it. I needed help. Not just a lawyer. I needed leverage. I remembered the name the mistress mentioned. Jasper. And the complaint about shopping on Thursdays. I went to my computer. I typed Jasper Atlanta into Facebook. Too many results. I tried Jasper wife Marlo. Bingo. Marlo Vance. Her profile was public. Of course it was. It was a shrine to her vanity. Photos of her at brunch, at the gym, at the beach. And photos of her husband. Jasper Vance. He looked kind. That was my first thought. He had a gentle face, dark hair starting to gray at the temples, and smile lines around his eyes. In the photos, he was always looking at her with adoration. Happy anniversary to my beautiful wife, one caption read. So lucky to share this life with you. Poor man. He was just like me. Living in a fantasy while his partner was sharpening the knife. I dug deeper. Jasper was a structural engineer. He owned his own firm. He was successful. The photos showed a nice house in the suburbs, expensive vacations, a boat. It was clear who had the money in that relationship. Marlo listed her occupation as lifestyle consultant, which sounded like code for unemployed with a rich husband. If Denver was trying to steal my money, Marlo was definitely spending Jasper's. I found his business website. There was an email address and a phone number. I stared at the screen. Should I call him? What if he didn't believe me? What if he told Marlo, and she warned Denver? I could lose my element of surprise. But I needed him. He was the only other person who had as much to lose as I did. And if Denver and Marlo were planning to run away together, they were probably planning to clean Jasper out too. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number. Vance Engineering, this is Jasper speaking, a deep voice answered. He sounded tired. Mr. Vance, I said, keeping my voice steady. My name is Liz Harper. You don't know me, but I think we have a mutual problem. I'm sorry, are you selling something? He asked politely. Because we're all set with vendors. I'm not selling anything, I said. I'm the wife of the man your wife is sleeping with. Silence. A long, heavy silence. I could hear him breathing. Is this a joke? He asked finally, his voice hardening. Because it's not funny. I wish it were a joke, Mr. Vance. Believe me. I saw them today. In a silver BMW near the Sovereign. Your wife was wearing a white dress with blue flowers. I heard a sharp intake of breath. She wore that dress this morning. She said she was going to a charity luncheon. She wasn't at a luncheon, Jasper. Can I call you Jasper? Yes. I have proof. I have photos. I have heard their plans. They are planning to leave us. And they are planning to take our money with them. Money? He sounded dazed. What money? Denver, my husband, forged my signature to take out a loan on my house. I suspect Marlo might be doing something similar to you. Have you checked your accounts lately? She handles the household expenses. I just put money in the joint account. Check it, Jasper. Please. For your own sake. I need to see you, he said abruptly. I need to see the proof. Meet me at the Starbucks on Piedmont in an hour. The one in the back, away from the windows. I'll be there, he said. I hung up. My hands were trembling again. But this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. I had an ally. A reluctant one, a hurt one, but an ally nonetheless. The war had officially begun. And Denver and Marlo had no idea they were fighting on two fronts. I arrived at Starbucks 15 minutes early. I sat in the corner, facing the door. I had a manila envelope on the table containing printed screenshots of Marlo's texts I had seen on Denver's iPad. I had managed to snap photos of the screen quickly, the loan documents, and the picture I took of them in the car. Jasper walked in right on time. He looked worse than his photos. His face was gray, his eyes bloodshot. He was wearing a polo shirt with his company logo, and he looked like a man who had just been told he had a terminal illness. He scanned the room, saw me, and walked over. He didn't shake my hand. He just sat down heavily. Show me, he said. His voice was rough. I slid the envelope across the table. He opened it. He looked at the photo of them in the car first. His jaw tightened. He flipped to the next page. It was a photo of a text message from Marlo to Denver. He's so boring, baby. I can't stand another night of his stories about concrete. I need you. Jasper flinched as if I had slapped him. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a shaky breath. She told me she loved my passion for my work, he whispered. She said she was proud of me. They lie, Jasper, I said softly. It's what they do. It's how they justify it. He looked at the financial documents. This is your house? Yes. Denver is trying to steal $400,000 from me. I checked my accounts before I came, Jasper said, looking up at me. His eyes were filled with a terrifying mix of sorrow and rage. The joint savings account is almost empty. There was $150,000 in there last month. Now there's $2,000. She said she transferred it to a high-yield investment fund she read about. I believed her. Did she give you any paperwork for this fund? He laughed, a bitter, dry sound. No. She said the statements would come by mail. I haven't seen any. We sat in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by the wreckage of our marriages. So, Jasper said, leaning back. They're going to run away together. With our money. In 2 weeks, I said. When my loan funds. What do you want to do? He asked. Do you want to confront them? Scream at them? I feel like I could kill him. Honestly, I could wrap my hands around his throat. No, I cut him off. Violence will only put you in jail and let them win. They'll play the victims. Oh, my crazy husband attacked me, I had to leave him. No. I leaned forward. We are going to hit them where it hurts. Their egos. And their wallets. How? First, we stop the money. I've already called the lending company and flagged the application as fraudulent. They are launching an investigation, but I told them to keep it quiet for a few days. Denver doesn't know yet. The loan will be denied, but he thinks it's still processing. And the money she took from me? Jasper asked. You need to freeze your accounts. Now. Today. Cut off her credit cards. Transfer whatever is left to a personal account she can't touch. Lawyer up. Get a forensic accountant to trace where that $150,000 went. If she moved it to a private account, a judge can order it back. Okay, Jasper nodded, taking mental notes. I can do that. And then what? Then, I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we give them the performance of a lifetime. Performance? Denver loves the Capitol Grill, I said. He thinks it makes him look important. He takes his VIP clients there. I know for a fact he has a reservation there this Thursday at 12:30. It's their regular spot. He thinks I'm at a design conference all day. And Marlo told me she has a dentist appointment on Thursday, Jasper said, clenching his fists. Perfect. We are going to go there, Jasper. You and me. We are going to walk in, interrupt their little date, and introduce ourselves. Jasper looked hesitant. A public scene? Isn't that messy? It's not just a scene, I explained. It's psychological warfare. Denver relies on his reputation. He's a realtor. Image is everything. If we expose him in front of his colleagues, in his favorite power spot, we destroy his social standing. We take away the one thing he values almost as much as money, his ego. And Marlo? Marlo cares about appearances, I said. Being humiliated in a high-end restaurant? Being exposed as a homewrecker in front of Atlanta's elite? It will crush her fantasy. She thinks she's the heroine of a romance novel. We're going to show her she's just a cliché. Jasper looked down at the table, thinking. He traced the grain of the wood with his finger. Then he looked up at me. The sadness in his eyes was replaced by a steely resolve. Okay, he said. Let's do it. Let's crash their lunch. Good, I said. But we have to be smart. We have to be calm. We don't scream. We don't cry. We are the adults in the room. We are the ones in control. Let them be the ones to panic. We spent the next hour planning every detail. What we would wear. What we would say. We even planned our exit. As we walked out of Starbucks, Jasper turned to me. Liz, he said. Thank you. For calling me. I would have been a fool until the bank account hit zero. We're in this together now, Jasper, I said. Let's make sure they regret the day they met. Which brings us back to the Capitol Grill. Back to the shattered wine glass and the red stain spreading on Marlo's dress. The restaurant was dead silent. Every eye was on us. A waiter hovered nearby with a towel, looking terrified to approach. Liz, Denver stammered again, his face slick with sweat. This isn't what it looks like. Marlo is, she's a client. She's looking for a house. A big house. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time, fueled by the sheer absurdity of his lie. A client? Denver, you are holding her hand. Do you hold all your clients' hands? Do you promise to take them to Cabo with my money? Denver flinched. Lower your voice, he hissed, glancing around at the other diners. You're making a scene. I'm not making a scene, Denver. You made the scene when you decided to sleep with another man's wife and forge my signature on a loan application. Gasps rippled through the nearby tables. Forged signature, someone whispered. Did she say steal money? Denver's eyes bulged. I didn't, that's insane. You're crazy, Liz. You've been under a lot of stress lately. You're imagining things. He was doing it. He was trying to gaslight me right there in public. He was trying to paint me as the hysterical, unstable wife. But Jasper stepped forward. He placed a heavy hand on the table, right next to the broken glass. "And what about me, Denver?" Jasper asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Am I imagining things too? Am I imagining that my wife transferred $150,000 of our savings into an account that I bet has your name on it?" Marlo looked at Jasper, her eyes wide with terror. "Jasper, honey, no. I was investing it. For us. For our future." "Don't," Jasper said, holding up a hand. "Don't lie to me anymore, Marlo. It's insulting. I saw the texts. Boring. Concrete stories. Remember?" Marlo went pale. She slumped back in the booth, defeated. Denver, realizing his crazy wife narrative wasn't working with Jasper there, switched tactics. He got angry. He stood up straight, trying to regain some dominance. "Look," he said, puffing out his chest. "Relationships end. Marriages fail. It happens. We fell in love. Is that a crime? We were going to tell you. We just wanted to find the right time." "The right time?" I asked. "Was the right time after the loan funded? After you stole my equity? After you left me with nothing but debt? I earned that equity," Denver shouted, losing his composure. "I worked my ass off for that house. I deserve a share. It's my grandmother's house, Denver. You haven't paid a dime toward the mortgage in 3 years. I have the bank statements to prove it." "You selfish bitch," he spat. The room gasped again. I didn't flinch. "I'm selfish? You're the one buying $300 steaks with money you don't have. By the way," I turned to the waiter who was frozen nearby. "Don't put this on his card. It will decline. He maxed it out on a suit he can't afford." Denver looked like he was going to hit me. His fists clenched at his sides. Jasper stepped in between us, his large frame blocking Denver. "Don't even think about it," Jasper warned. Denver looked at Jasper, then at the crowd watching him with judgment and disgust. He realized he had lost. The room wasn't filled with his admirers anymore. It was filled with witnesses. "I'm done here," Denver muttered. He grabbed his jacket. "Come on, Marlo." Marlo looked at Jasper, then at Denver. She looked at the red wine stain on her dress. She hesitated. "Jasper," she whispered. "I." "Go," Jasper said coldly. "Go with him. You deserve each other. But don't bother coming home. I changed the locks this morning. And I canceled your credit cards. Good luck paying for a hotel." Marlo's jaw dropped. You can't do that. Watch me." She looked at Denver. "You have money, right? For a hotel?" Denver looked away. "Let's just go." They walked out of the restaurant, a walk of shame to end all walks of shame. Denver tried to look dignified, but he was walking too fast, almost running. Marlo hobbled after him in her heels, clutching her stained dress. When the door closed behind them, the adrenaline left me. My knees felt weak. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. Jasper looked at me. He looked exhausted, but his shoulders were lighter. He reached out and squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I think so," I said, taking a shaky breath. "We did it." "We did," he nodded. "But this isn't over, is it?" "No," I said, looking at the door where my husband had just walked out of my life. "This is just the beginning. Now comes the war." Because I knew Denver. I knew his pride. He wouldn't just walk away. He would come back. He would come back swinging. He would try to destroy me legally, financially, and emotionally. He would try to take the house. He would try to paint me as the villain. But he forgot one thing. You said something to him, Jasper said, interrupting my thoughts. About the house. I give you the world, but not this house. I did, I said. And I meant it. I looked at Jasper, and a new thought formed in my mind. A plan B. Or maybe, a plan A part 2. Jasper, I said. You're a structural engineer, right? You know about foundations? Yes, he said, confused. Good. Because Denver is going to try to tear my foundation down. And I'm going to need help reinforcing it. But first. I looked at the waiter. Can we get a table? And a bottle of your best champagne? My friend and I have a freedom to celebrate. Jasper smiled. It was a small, sad smile, but it was real. I think I'd like that. We sat down. We ordered. We drank. But in the back of my mind, the gears were turning. I knew Denver's next move. He would file for emergency support. He would claim he was destitute because of me. He would play the victim card until the judge handed him a tissue. But I had something he didn't know about. I had found something else in that safe. Something old. Something hidden in the lining of the folder. A document my grandmother had signed years ago, long before I met Denver. A document that changed everything about who owned that house. And I wasn't going to show it to him until the perfect moment. To new beginnings, Jasper said, raising his glass. To the truth, I replied, clinking my glass against his. The lunch from hell was over. The battle for my life had just begun. And as I sipped the cold, crisp champagne, I realized something surprising. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. The euphoria of the restaurant showdown lasted exactly 4 hours. It ended the moment I tried to buy groceries. I was at Publix, standing in the checkout line with a cart full of comfort food, ice cream, wine, and ingredients for a lasagna I had no appetite to eat. When I swiped my debit card, the machine beeped a harsh, dissonant tone. Declined. I frowned and swiped again. Declined. Maybe it's the chip, the cashier said kindly, though the line behind me was already shifting impatiently. I pulled out my credit card. The one with the high limit we kept for emergencies. Declined. My stomach dropped to the floor. I opened my banking app on my phone. My thumb hovered over the icon, trembling. When the screen loaded, I gasped audibly. Balance, $0. The savings account? $0. The joint checking? -$34. Denver hadn't just left the restaurant in shame. He had gone straight to his phone, or maybe he had done it before he even walked into the Capitol Grill. He had drained everything. Every penny we had saved for renovations, for retirement, for emergencies. He had transferred it all out. I abandoned the cart right there in the aisle, muttering an apology to the cashier, and ran to my car. I called the bank immediately. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper, the customer service agent said, her voice robotic and detached. Since it is a joint account, Mr. Harper has full authority to withdraw funds. The transfer was completed 20 minutes ago to an external account. But it's all the money, I shouted, hitting the steering wheel. He left me with nothing. How is that legal? It's a civil matter, ma'am. You'll have to take it up with your lawyers. I hung up and slumped against the seat. I was 42 years old, and I didn't have enough money to buy milk. This was his move. He knew I would come after the house, so he took the liquidity. He wanted to starve me out. He wanted me desperate so I would sign whatever settlement he threw at me. My phone pinged. A text from Denver. Actions have consequences, Liz. You want to humiliate me publicly? Enjoy eating ramen. If you want the accounts unlocked, sign the loan papers. I can still stop the foreclosure if we get the cash. Your choice. He was doubling down. He still thought he could force me to take that fraudulent loan to save us, hiding the fact that he just wanted the cash to run away. I drove home, my hands shaking. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw a dark sedan parked in front of my house. A process server. He handed me a thick envelope. Elizabeth Harper? Yes. You've been served. I walked into my grandmother's house, the house Denver was trying to steal, and tore open the envelope. It was a petition for divorce. But it wasn't just a divorce. It was a declaration of war. He was filing for at-fault divorce. The grounds? Cruelty and mental instability. I read the paragraphs, my blood boiling hotter with every word. He claimed I had become paranoid and erratic due to hormonal changes. He claimed I had publicly harassed him and his business associate, Marlo, at a professional meeting, causing him irreparable reputational damage. He was asking for emergency spousal support because I had cut him off from his home office, preventing him from working. He was spinning the narrative. He was the victim. I was the crazy, jealous, menopausal wife. I sank onto the floor of the foyer, the legal papers crinkling under my skirt. I felt small. I felt foolish. I had won the battle at lunch, but I was losing the war before it even started. I had no money for a retainer. I had no access to funds. Then, the doorbell rang again. I didn't want to answer it. I thought it might be another process server, or maybe Denver coming to gloat. But the ringing was persistent. I looked through the peephole. It was Jasper. He was holding a pizza box and a bottle of whiskey. I opened the door. I must have looked like a wreck, mascara running, clutching legal papers, barefoot. I tried to use my card at the gas station, Jasper said, his face grim. Declined. Marlo drained the joint accounts too. She must have called Denver right after they left. Denver took everything, I whispered. I figured, Jasper said. So, I brought dinner. Paid cash. I keep a stash in my toolbox. He walked in, not waiting for an invitation, and set the pizza on the hallway table. He looked at the papers in my hand. Divorce papers? And a motion for emergency support. He says I'm crazy, Jasper. He's using the crazy wife card. Jasper poured 2 glasses of whiskey in paper cups he found in the kitchen. He handed me one. Marlo sent me a text, he said, taking a long sip. She says if I don't vacate our house by tomorrow, she's filing for a restraining order. She claims she feels unsafe because of my violent outburst at the restaurant. You didn't even raise your voice, I said, indignant. Doesn't matter. It's the narrative they agreed on. They're coordinating, Liz. They are 2 rats in a corner, and they are fighting for their lives. We sat on the floor of my living room, eating pepperoni pizza and drinking cheap whiskey. We were 2 successful people, an engineer and a designer, reduced to camping in our own homes, penniless and accused of being the villains. But as the shock wore off, something else took its place. A cold, hard clarity. They think this is the end, I said, staring at the fireplace. They think starving us out will work. It usually does, Jasper said. Lawyers cost money. Fighting costs money. I have a friend, I said. Sarah. We went to college together. She's a shark in a skirt. She practices family law in Buckhead. I haven't seen her in years because Denver didn't like her. He said she was too aggressive. Sounds like exactly what we need, Jasper said. I can't pay her, I said, my voice cracking. Jasper reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy gold watch. A Rolex. My father gave me this when I graduated. It's worth about 10 grand. It's not in the joint account. It's on my wrist. He took it off and placed it on the pizza box. Sell it, he said. Retain Sarah. We are not losing this, Liz. I don't care if I have to sleep in my truck. We are not letting them win. I looked at the watch, then at Jasper. This man, who had been a stranger a week ago, was betting his family heirloom on me. Keep your watch, I said, standing up. I have something better. I have the truth. And I know where Denver hides his skeletons. If he wants to claim I'm crazy, I'm going to show him exactly how crazy I can get. The next morning, I walked into Sarah's office. I didn't have the retainer fee yet, but I had the photos, the forged loan documents, and a fire in my belly that refused to go out. Sarah listened to me for an hour without interrupting. She was a petite woman with sharp glasses and a smile that could cut glass. When I finished, she took off her glasses and cleaned them slowly. Okay, she said. Here's the situation. The forgery is a felony. That's our nuclear option. But if we play that card too early, he goes to jail immediately, the assets get frozen by the feds, and you might be tied up in litigation for years trying to separate your house from his criminal restitution. We need to be surgical. So what do? We let him hang himself, Sarah said. He wants an emergency hearing for support? We give it to him. But we use it to get him under oath. The hearing was set for 3 days later. Those 3 days were a nightmare. Denver had cut off the utilities. The power company told me Mr. Harper requested a disconnect. I had to use the last of my cash to pay a reconnection fee. He sent flowers to the house with a card that said, "Thinking of you in your darkness." It was psychological torture. He wanted me to break. He wanted me to call him begging. I didn't call. I spent 3 days digging through the attic. I was looking for an old laptop. Denver goes through computers like he goes through trends. He buys the newest MacBook every 2 years and tosses the old one in a box labeled junk. He thinks deleting files makes them disappear. He doesn't know that delete just hides them. I found it on Tuesday night. A dusty MacBook Pro from 2019. It wouldn't turn on. I called Jasper. I found a laptop. But the battery is dead and I can't find the charger. I'm on my way, he said. Jasper arrived with a universal charger and a toolkit. We sat at my kitchen table, the only light coming from a battery-powered lantern because I was saving electricity. When the screen flickered to life, it asked for a password. Try Marlowe, Jasper said bitterly. This is from 2019, I said. Did you know them back then? No. We met in 2020. Okay. Try money. Incorrect. Try Denver the Great, I suggested sarcastically. Jasper typed it in. Unlocked. We both laughed, but it was a dry, humorless sound. The man's ego was literally his password. We spent the night combing through the files. Most of it was boring real estate contracts. But then, deep in a folder labeled miscellaneous, we found it. A spreadsheet. It was titled Cash Flow _off books. My eyes widened as I scrolled down. It was a ledger of cash payments from contractors. Kickbacks. When Denver sold a house, he would recommend a specific contractor for repairs. That contractor would overcharge the client and kick back 20% to Denver in cash. This is tax fraud, Jasper whispered. And racketeering. Look at the dates, I pointed to a column. March 2021. June 2022. He's been doing this for years. This is leverage, Jasper said. But it's not enough to stop the alimony claim. He can say this is old news. Keep looking, I said. Then we found the emails. Archived emails between Denver and a man named Vinny at Apex Lending, the predatory lender. Email from Denver, she's clueless, Vinny. The house is appraised at $800,000. I need $400,000 cash out. I'll handle the signature. Just make sure the notary looks the other way. Email from Vinny, risky, Denver. If she contests it, we're both screwed. Email from Denver, she won't contest. I'm going to gaslight her into thinking she signed it during a refinance. or I'll declare her incompetent. I just need the cash to clear the gambling debt before the guys from Vegas come looking. Gambling debt. I froze. I didn't know he gambled. Jasper looked at me with pity. Liz, there's so much we didn't know. We had the smoking gun. Not just forgery, but conspiracy to commit fraud and evidence of a gambling addiction that provided the motive. The next morning was the emergency hearing. I walked into the courtroom wearing a navy blue suit, my grandmother's pearls, and my lucky heels, the ones I wore when I landed my biggest design client. I looked like the picture of stability. Denver was there with his lawyer, a slimy man named Rick who smelled of stale cigarettes. Denver looked tired, unshaven. He was playing the part of the distressed husband. Marlo was there too, sitting in the back row, wearing oversized sunglasses. She was there to support him, or maybe to make sure he didn't screw up the payout. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Coleman, looked over her glasses at us. Mr. Harper, she said. You are requesting $5,000 a month in temporary spousal support because your wife has locked you out of the marital home and your accounts? Yes, Your Honor, Denver said, his voice trembling theatrically. She emptied the accounts, Your Honor. I have no access to my own money. I can't work. I'm afraid to go home because of her erratic behavior. Liar, I mouthed. Sarah squeezed my arm under the table. Wait, she whispered. Mrs. Harper, the judge turned to me. Did you empty the accounts? Sarah stood up. Your Honor, we have bank records showing that the transfers were initiated from Mr. Harper's phone, using his biometric login, at 12:45 p.m. on Thursday. 5 minutes after he left the restaurant. She handed a file to the bailiff. Denver paled. Rick, his lawyer, shuffled his papers nervously. Your Honor, my client was confused. He meant she forced him to move the money to protect it. Protect it from what? Judge Coleman asked sharply. From her spending. She has a shopping addiction. Sarah handed another document to the bailiff. The credit card statements for the last 5 years, Your Honor. Mrs. Harper's spending is exclusively on groceries and household utilities. Mr. Harper, however, has thousands of dollars in charges at, let's see, the Sapphire Club, Caesar's Palace Las Vegas, and Tiffany & Company. Sarah turned to look directly at Marlo in the back row. Though Mrs. Harper certainly never received any Tiffany jewelry. Marlo shrank down in her seat. This is irrelevant. Rick shouted. We are here about immediate support. It is relevant to credibility, Your Honor, Sarah said calmly. But if we are talking about support, we would like to submit Exhibit C. This was the email chain with Vinny. Sarah didn't read it aloud. She just let the judge read it. We watched Judge Coleman's face. She adjusted her glasses. She frowned. She flipped the page. Her eyebrows went up. She looked at Denver. Mr. Harper, the judge said, her voice dropping an octave. Did you write an email on February 14th stating, I'll handle the signature? Just make sure the notary looks the other way? Denver froze. He looked at Rick. Rick looked at the document and closed his eyes, realizing he had walked into a trap. I don't recall, Denver stammered. You don't recall conspiring to commit mortgage fraud? The judge asked. It was a joke. Denver blurted out. Just locker room talk with a buddy. A joke, Judge Coleman repeated. She took off her glasses. Mr. Harper, I am denying your request for support. I am also issuing a temporary restraining order preventing you from selling, encumbering, or borrowing against any marital assets. And I am forwarding this email to the district attorney's office for review. Denver stood up, panic in his eyes. You can't do that. I need that money. Sit down, the bailiff barked. Judge Coleman turned to me. Mrs. Harper, you have possession of the home until trial. Mr. Harper, you have 24 hours to retrieve your personal effects, supervised by a sheriff's deputy. We walked out of that courtroom victorious. But I knew it wasn't over. A wounded animal is the most dangerous. Denver wasn't just broke now, he was facing jail time. He was going to get desperate. And desperate men do terrible things. 2 days after the hearing, Denver was officially living in a cheap motel off the highway. I knew this because Jasper was tracking Marlowe's location. Marlowe had stayed with him for one night, then abruptly left. She went to her sister's place, Jasper told me over the phone. Chloe. They hate each other. Why would she go there? Because she has nowhere else. I cut the cards. Denver is broke. Marlowe burns bridges, but Chloe is the only family she has left. We need to talk to Chloe, I said. Already on it. Chloe messaged me on Instagram. She wants to meet. We met Chloe at a diner on the outskirts of town. Chloe looked nothing like Marlowe. She had dark hair, messy bun, no makeup, and looked exhausted. She was a nurse. I always told Jasper he was too good for her, Chloe said, stirring her black coffee. Marlowe has been using people since high school. She used to steal my babysitting money. Why are you helping us? I asked. Because she showed up at my apartment demanding I loan her $5,000, Chloe scoffed. She said she needed it to invest in Denver's comeback. She thinks he has a secret stash of crypto or something. He doesn't, I said. He has a gambling debt. I know, Chloe said. Because she was screaming at him on the phone last night. The walls in my apartment are thin. Chloe reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I recorded it. I thought. I don't know, maybe I'd need it to get a restraining order against her eventually. She pressed play. Marlowe's voice, shrill and angry, filled the booth. You promised me, Denver. You said the house was a done deal. You said Liz was a pushover. Now I'm sleeping on my sister's lumpy couch and Jasper has locked me out of the Tesla. Denver's voice, muffled, on speakerphone, calm down, babe. It's a setback. I have a plan. I'm going to burn the house down. I gasped. Jasper grabbed my hand. Marlowe's voice, what? Are you insane? Denver, if I can't have the equity, nobody gets it. The insurance money pays out to both of us. It's the only way, Marlowe. I owe $50,000 to guys who break kneecaps. I need a payout. Thursday night. Liz has her pottery class. The house will be empty. The recording ended. I sat there, frozen. My blood ran cold. He was going to burn my grandmother's house. He was going to burn down the place where I learned to walk, where my mother died, where I had poured my heart and soul into every floorboard. Thursday night, Jasper whispered. That's tonight. I looked at my watch. It was 4 p.m. We have to call the police, Chloe said. No, I said, a dangerous calm settling over me. If we call the police now, they'll just go talk to him. He'll deny it. He'll say it was just talk, like the email. And then he'll wait. He'll do it next week, or next month. I can't live looking over my shoulder, wondering if my house is going to explode while I sleep. So what do we do? Jasper asked. We let him try, I said. And we catch him in the act. Liz, that's too dangerous, Jasper argued. What if the fire spreads? What if you get hurt? I won't be in the house, I said. But the cameras will be. I had installed hidden nanny cams years ago when we had a dog walker I didn't trust. Denver knew about the alarm system, and he knew the code. But he didn't know about the independent, battery-operated cameras hidden in the bookshelves and the smoke detectors. We set a trap, I said. Jasper, can you park down the street? Chloe, you stay out of this for your safety. I'm going to go to pottery class like I usually do. But I'll be sitting in Jasper's truck, watching the feed. And when he shows up? We call 911 the second he strikes the match. It was the riskiest thing I had ever done. But I was done being the victim. I was done being the old wife who got scammed. I was going to be the hunter. Night fell. The air was thick with humidity and the chirping of crickets. My house, my beautiful Victorian home with its wraparound porch, stood dark and silent at the end of the street. I was sitting in Jasper's truck, parked 3 houses down, hidden by the shadows of a large oak tree. Jasper was in the driver's seat, his phone ready to dial 911. On my iPad, I had the live feed from the 4 cameras inside the house. Living room. Kitchen. Hallway. Back door. Are you sure about this? Jasper asked, his voice tight. He's desperate, I said, my eyes glued to the screen. Desperate men make mistakes. He thinks I'm at the studio. He thinks he has a 2-hour window. At 8:15 p.m., a car rolled slowly down the street. It wasn't Denver's BMW. It was a beat-up Honda Civic, probably a rental. It parked a block away. A figure emerged. He was wearing a dark hoodie and carrying a red gas can. It's him, I whispered. Even in the dark, I recognized his walk. The arrogant stride was gone, replaced by a nervous, jerky gait. He approached the back of the house. On the screen, I saw the back door handle jiggle. Then, he punched in the code on the keypad. The little green light blinked. He was in. He's in the kitchen, I said. On the screen, Denver moved quickly. He was splashing liquid, gasoline, onto the hardwood floors I had refinished with my own hands. He splashed it on the curtains. He splashed it on the antique dining table. Tears pricked my eyes. To see him desecrate my home, our home, with such casual malice, it broke something inside me. Any lingering affection, any tiny shred of doubt that maybe he was just a flawed man making mistakes, it all evaporated. This wasn't a mistake. This was evil. He's moving to the living room, I narrated, my voice shaking. He's piling up newspapers on the rug. Liz, call it, Jasper said. Now. Wait, I said. We need him to light it. Attempted arson is one thing. Arson is another. We need to make sure he goes away for a long time. If he lights it, the house burns. I have extinguishers hidden in the pantry. You're fast. We can stop it. On the screen, Denver pulled out a lighter. The flame flickered, illuminating his face. He looked manic. He was sweating. He was muttering to himself. He dropped the lighter onto the pile of newspapers. Whoosh. The fire caught instantly. The flames licked up the curtains. Now. I screamed. Jasper hit the call button. 911. Arson in progress at 42 Maple Drive. Suspect is on the premises. At the same time, I jumped out of the truck. I didn't wait for Jasper. I sprinted toward the house. Liz. Wait. Jasper yelled. I ran to the back door. I burst into the kitchen. The smell of gasoline was overpowering. The smoke alarm was screaming. Denver spun around. He was standing by the archway to the living room, watching the fire grow. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. Liz, he choked out. You're supposed to be at pottery. Surprise, I coughed, covering my nose and mouth with my sleeve. You. He looked at the fire, then at me. You have to get out. It's going to blow. You tried to burn my house down. I screamed, grabbing the heavy fire extinguisher from the pantry bracket. I had to, he yelled back, his voice cracking. I need the money. They're going to kill me, Liz. I hope they do. I pulled the pin and aimed the nozzle at the burning curtains. Denver lunged at me. Let it burn. Don't you get it? It's the only way out. He grabbed the extinguisher, trying to wrestle it from my hands. He was stronger than me, but I was fueled by pure rage. I kicked him in the shin, hard. He howled and stumbled back. I sprayed the foam onto the fire. The chemical cloud filled the room, choking the flames on the curtains. But the rug was still blazing. Jasper burst through the door. He didn't hesitate. He tackled Denver like a linebacker. They crashed into the kitchen island. Denver swung a fist, hitting Jasper in the jaw, but Jasper didn't flinch. He pinned Denver to the ground, twisting his arm behind his back. "Stay down," Jasper roared. I finished extinguishing the rug. The room was filled with white dust and smoke, but the fire was out. The damage was done, scorched floors, ruined curtains, but the house was standing. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. Denver was sobbing on the floor, pinned under Jasper's weight. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he whimpered. "I just wanted a fresh start." I walked over to him. I looked down at the man I had loved for 15 years. He looked pathetic. Covered in soot, smelling of gas, crying like a child because his plan to destroy my life had failed. "You don't get a fresh start, Denver," I said, my voice cutting through the wail of the sirens. "You get a prison cell." Blue and red lights flashed through the windows. The police burst in, guns drawn. "Police! Show me your hands." Jasper slowly got off Denver, raising his hands. "He's the arsonist." I detained him. They handcuffed Denver. As they dragged him out, he looked back at me. "Liz, please. Tell them it was an accident. Tell them I was trying to put it out. I'm your husband." I looked him dead in the eye. "I don't have a husband," I said. "I have a plaintiff." Denver's arrest was the nail in the coffin, but the divorce trial 2 months later was the funeral. He was currently out on bail, paid for by his parents, who had mortgaged their own double-wide trailer to get him out, but he was wearing an ankle monitor. He looked gaunt. The charm was gone. The fake tan had faded. Marlo was there, too. She had been subpoenaed as a hostile witness. She sat as far away from Denver as possible. The trial was about the division of assets and the validity of the debt. Denver's lawyer, Rick, was trying a Hail Mary defense. He argued that Denver's arson attempt was a mental breakdown caused by my financial abuse, locking the accounts, and therefore I was partially responsible. He also argued that since the loan wasn't funded, the debt to the loan sharks was a marital liability because he incurred it trying to maintain our lifestyle. It was laughable, but dangerous. If the judge bought it, I could be stuck paying half of his gambling losses. Sarah put me on the stand first. I told the story calmly. The receipt. The tracking. The forged signature. The fire. Then, Sarah called Marlo. Marlo walked to the stand like she was walking the plank. She was wearing a modest gray suit, trying to look like a victim. "Mrs. Vance," Sarah asked, "did you know Denver Harper was planning to set fire to his wife's home?" "No," Marlo said quietly. I told him not to." "But you knew he was considering it?" "He talked crazy sometimes. I didn't think he'd do it." "Did you know he was forging his wife's signature?" I suspected." And yet, Sarah walked to the projector. "You sent him this text on March 12th, just sign the bitch's name and get the cash, Denver. I need that Tesla payment." The courtroom gasped. Marlo turned beet red. "I was joking," she squeaked. "It seems you and Mr. Harper share a very specific sense of humor involving felonies," Sarah said dryly. No further questions. Then, it was Denver's turn. He tried to be charming. He tried to cry. He looked at Judge Coleman, the same judge from the emergency hearing, who now looked at him with open disdain, and said, "Your Honor, I have a sickness. Gambling is a disease. I need help, not poverty." Liz has the house. She has the business. I have nothing. I just want a fair share of the equity I helped build so I can pay my debts and start over. Judge Coleman looked at him. Mr. Harper, you tried to burn the equity. You don't get to claim a share of the ashes. But the real blow came at the end. Sarah stood up. Your Honor, regarding the debts. Mr. Harper claims he owes $50,000 to unknown individuals and $400,000 to Apex Lending for the fraudulent loan application fees and penalties. He wants Mrs. Harper to split this debt. That is correct, Rick said. It's marital debt. Actually, Sarah smiled. It's not. Because the debt has been purchased. Denver looked confused. What? The debt to Apex Lending, Sarah explained, holding up a document. Apex sold their bad debt portfolio last week to a private holding company called Justice Holdings LLC. So? Rick asked. Who owns Justice Holdings? Sarah pointed to the back of the courtroom. To Jasper. Jasper stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. He looked powerful. He looked calm. Mr. Jasper Vance owns Justice Holdings, Sarah said. He bought your debt, Denver, for pennies on the dollar because Apex knew it was uncollectible. Which means, Mr. Harper, you don't owe Apex anymore. You owe Jasper. Denver's jaw hit the floor. He spun around to look at Jasper. Jasper gave him a small, cold wave. And, Sarah continued, Mr. Vance has instructed me to inform the court that he will not be seeking repayment from Mrs. Harper. He forgives her portion of the alleged liability. He will, however, be pursuing Mr. Harper for the full amount, plus interest. And since Mr. Harper has no assets, Mr. Vance will be garnishing his wages for the rest of his life. Denver slumped in his chair. He looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Judge Coleman banged her gavel. It sounded like a gunshot. Judgment for the petitioner, Elizabeth Harper, she ruled. The marriage is dissolved. Mrs. Harper retains the home, her business, and 100% of her retirement assets. Mr. Harper assumes 100% of the gambling debt and the legal fees. Furthermore, Mr. Harper is remanded to custody for violation of bail conditions regarding the arson charge. The bailiff moved in. Denver stood up, his hands shaking. He looked at me one last time. Liz, he pleaded. You can't let them do this. I'm your husband. I stood up. I smoothed my skirt. I looked him in the eye, and I delivered the line I had been saving for months. You were never my husband, Denver, I said, my voice clear and loud enough for the whole room to hear. You were just a bad investment. And I'm finally cutting my losses. The moment the handcuffs clicked onto Denver's wrists was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Better than any song, better than any applause. It was the sound of freedom. Jasper and I walked out of the courthouse together. The sun was shining. It was a bright, crisp Atlanta afternoon. Did you really buy his debt? I asked Jasper as we walked to the parking lot. Yep, Jasper grinned. Cost me about $5,000. Apex just wanted it off their books. Best money I ever spent. So you own him? Technically, yes. Every time he earns $1 flipping burgers or making license plates, 25 cents belongs to me. It's not about the money, Liz. It's about the reminder. Every paycheck, he'll remember us. We laughed. For the first time in months, the laughter felt light. It wasn't manic or hysterical. It was joyful. What about Marlo? I asked. She's moving to Ohio, Jasper said. To live with an aunt. She has to work at a diner to pay off the credit card fraud judgment I got against her. No more Teslas. No more Capitol Grill. We reached my car. I turned to look at him. You saved my life, Jasper. You know that? We saved each other, he said softly. He looked at me, and the air between us shifted. It wasn't the desperate camaraderie of two victims anymore. It was something else. Respect. Admiration. Maybe something more. "So," he said, scuffing his shoe on the pavement. "Now that we aren't plotting revenge or fighting lawsuits, what do we do?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I have a house to repair. A business to rebuild. I'm handy with tools," Jasper offered. "I know a thing or two about fixing fire damage." "I bet you do." "And," he added, "I know a great place for dinner. Cheap. Greasy. No white tablecloths. No steak." "Pizza?" I asked. "Pizza." 6 months later, the smell of smoke was finally gone from my house. The living room floors were refinished, a lighter, warmer oak this time. I changed the curtains to a cheerful yellow. I didn't want the house to look like a museum of my past anymore. I wanted it to look like my future. Denver was serving a 5-year sentence for arson and fraud. I didn't visit him. I didn't think about him much, except when the monthly restitution check for $12.50 arrived in my mailbox, his prison wages garnished. I framed the first one and hung it in the laundry room. A little trophy. Marla was gone. Her Instagram had been deleted. The last I heard from Chloe, Marla was working double shifts at a diner in Dayton and had gained 20 pounds. Petty? Maybe. But I allowed myself a smile. I was sitting on my back porch, drinking coffee. It was Sunday morning. The screen door creaked open. Jasper walked out, holding 2 mugs. He was wearing a t-shirt covered in sawdust. He had been helping me build a new deck all weekend. "Coffee's ready," he said, handing me a mug. "Thanks." He sat down next to me on the swing. We rocked gently, listening to the birds. "You know," Jasper said, looking out at the garden, "I never thought I'd be happy again. After everything." "Me neither," I said. "But I am. Happier than I was before. Before, I was living a lie. Now, this is real." I leaned my head on his shoulder. It felt solid. Safe. We weren't rushing into anything. We were taking it slow. We were 2 people who had been burned, literally and figuratively, and we were learning to trust the heat again. But looking at the man next to me, the man who had bought my ex-husband's debt just to protect me, the man who had tackled an arsonist in my kitchen, I knew I was safe. So, that's my story. I caught my husband with a married woman, and instead of crying, I invited her husband to lunch. I lost my savings, almost lost my house, and faced down a fire. But I came out the other side with something far more valuable than equity. I found my self-worth. I learned that I am not just a wife. I am not just a victim. I am a fighter. I learned that sometimes, the person you think is your soulmate is just a lesson, and the stranger you meet in your darkest hour might turn out to be your light. If you are watching this, and you feel like something is wrong in your relationship, if you see the receipts, if you smell the cologne, if you feel that splinter in your mind, don't ignore it. Don't be the cool wife who looks the other way. Trust your gut. And if you find out the worst is true, don't just get mad. Get smart. Get organized. And find yourself a Jasper. Because the best revenge isn't keying his car or screaming in public. The best revenge is living a life so beautiful, so full of peace and love, that they can't even touch it. I'm Liz Harper. I'm 43 years old. And I'm finally, truly, free. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share. And remember, never sign anything without reading it first.